mornings. We're sitting at 9 minutes past 7 o'clock. And of course, in the midst of Tonga's main island, Tongatapu has begun a 7-day snap lockdown, but also preparations for its general election is still underway. The general election will be held on the 18th of November. And as of late, last month, 75 people have registered as candidates. So joining us now for Talanoa about this is Massey University Associate Professor Mafua Ailutai Malakai Kolomatangi. With that, I say Marorele and welcome to the show.
Malole, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I appreciate you getting up this early just to have a talanoa with us. But before we get into it, we always like to check in on our guests, Malakai, and just ask, how have you and your family been during this lockdown?
I think like everyone else in Auckland, it has been quite a while, and we would like to go down the levels, obviously, but we have the safety and the health of good health of everyone in mind. So we're just trying to do our bit, but we're good here at home. We're all essential workers, apparently. So there's a lot of activity and movement about. So yeah, we're all good.
No, Maloya, no, it's good to hear that you guys are well, though. Now, of course, Tonga has gone into a bit of a snap lockdown with the decision that Tonga's health authorities have made. Were you happy with this decision? Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's good to take these precautions. What you don't want to do is try and when you're behind the 8 ball and trying to sort of catch up, that presents difficulties. But I think it's good to err on the side of caution. And it may seem maybe an overreaction just because a one positive week case, but Tonga's 100,000 people. One positive case can be devastating for that kind of small population and very closely located people. And so I think it's a good decision to make.
Thank you for that. Malakai, of course, the general election, it is just around the corner on the 18th of November. Considering the current COVID-19 situation, how much do you feel that that's going to actually impact the general election at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think physically, I'm not sure, but because it depends on how long the government would. I think it prudent to put the country into lockdown, but in terms of whether the COVID-19 is a political issue for the election, I think it will be. So regardless of whether there's a lockdown or not, the reaction, the government's reaction and policies and so forth, with the impact of COVID-19, it will be an election issue, as it was here in New Zealand. So it's interesting to see the parallels, but I think that's probably the similar. Not only for Tonga, but also for other Pacific Islands that are, going to hold elections soon. So it will be, I think, to a certain extent, a COVID-19 election anyway, regardless of whether there's whether the lockdown will impact on the 18th November election date or not.
Speaking about parallels, though, of course, if there's someone who isn't really familiar with Tonga's political processes, maybe can you give sort of a brief sort of explanation as how Tonga's general election works? Is it similar to New Zealand's at all?
No. So Tonga's obviously a smaller parliament. There's 26 seats in parliament, and obviously, the 26, 19 are for the general election, general population, and 9 are set aside for the nobles elections. By the way, the nobles will elect their representatives on the same day as the general population. Usually, they have it a day before. So usually, if there was the case, then they will hold it on the 17th of November. But it seems like they're going to be holding both elections on the same day. So. We get the population get to elect the 17th, and then they sit in parliament. People are voted. It's mainly first past the post, which is of course not. It's not similar to what we have here with MMP, and so it's first past the post. But they have block voting. So block voting, in terms of the electorate. So obviously there are. 17 electorates to vote in the 17 representatives, and they're spread out throughout the islands. course, the bulk of that of representatives are voted from Tonga Tapu, which has about 70% of the population. So, which is, so these seats were decided, seat allocations were decided according to population. So on the day, people just go on and vote for their representatives from the different constituencies. So it's seat number one. There's a certain boundary, and people cannot vote, say, for example, for someone on seat number two. So you have to vote for representatives from the electorate that are representing seat number one. So it's quite orderly. But in the past, of course, what happened was anyone could vote for anyone. So it didn't have any boundaries. You could vote if you and So it was also interesting. But we were talking about a smaller population. But this again, of course, people might know these reforms came into being in time for the 2010 general election. So that's why it's quite simple, actually. It's one of the first past the post principles. Whoever gets the largest, number of votes gets into parliament.
But just sort of the difference though between the systems that we have in Tonga in regards to noble seats versus having an actual democratically elected seat. What's the biggest difference there?
Yeah, I mean the biggest difference, of course, is that there are 33 titles and estates, noble titles and estates in Tonga. So the 33 titles get to vote in their 9 representatives, whilst the other 100,000 or so, vote in the 17. Now, when you look at that in terms of representation, obviously there is a problem, right? There's the disparity, but Tonga works in a also the nobles themselves are voted in by nobles, obviously. But they argue that they also represent the people who live on their estates. So it's not quite a us and them sort of thing. It's quite a sophisticated way. And it's in a way because the Tongan system was based on the English system. So the House of Lords in Great Britain works differently to the House of Commons. So of course the difference is that in Tonga there is no upper house. There's only one house, and so nobles and commoners, as they're called, sit together and decide on legislation and so on, which is it's always somewhat awkward in a way. But Tonga has lived with this for over 100 years, so there are some things to be ironed out, but mostly the system works.
Yeah, no, I've definitely got a better understanding on that right now. So with I've read here, of course, you've got 75 registered candidates. Does that mean that they actually belong to a political party, or can they all either be independent?
Well, the thing with Tonga, again, another complicated factor in all this, of course, there are no formal political parties in Tonga. There are informal ones, and the Democratic Party has been an informal party for. I mean, it acts like a party in terms of it has its candidates, it's got a manifesto, their campaign is one, but it's not a formal party in the sense like the Labour Party or National Party here in New Zealand. So there are supposedly 2 parties contesting this, and independents. So there is the Democratic Party of the Friendly Islands, and there's also the Tongan People's Party, which is the party that is headed by the current Prime Minister. And usually independents decide who gets the government reins. So usually the informal parties tend to rely on the independents, and which party the independents go with, that's usually the party that gets up in government. As this government, current government, has demonstrated, it's demonstrated in the past. So there are 2 informal parties, but they're not. It'd be wrong to say that these are formally organized parties where candidates toe the line in a formal and organized sense, like New Zealand parties, for example.
Is there any, Malakai, is it too early though to maybe say who are the candidates that are in the lead or have a general public backing at the moment?
One of the things that that is quite interesting in this case is that there is the absence of the late Akinisi Pohila, was former prime minister, but also head of the Tonga Democratic Party in Tonga. He's no longer here. He passed away, and he had a great deal of influence. And one wonders how his party would fare without him at the helm. So there is that. There is also a couple of seats they've been left vacant from the last parliament. So that we have to factor that in. We have also the incumbents, as I say, who a lot of them actually held on to Pohila's coattails and got into parliament through that way. So you wonder how they would, stand independently. There's also, of course, we got to also remember that the voting public, the registered voters, the numbers have gone down recently, and they have continued to go down. And I'm predicting that this year will not be different. I think we will see less and less people turn up. We're talking about sort of turn out in a sort of high 60s, which is quite low. There's also the biggest voting block in terms of population demographics is the 31 to 40-year-olds, right? And so they will obviously decide who will get into parliament. But so those things in the mix, and also COVID, there's been the issues around the drugs and how the government has tried to combat that. The King's speech about the government not doing its job and parliamentarians not performing, and his desire that better parliamentarians are voting into parliament, which is of course easier said than done. So all those things I think are in the mix. Sort of putting it out there, I think it would be surprising if there's a great deal of change coming out of this.
No, Malo, thank you for that. If you're just tuning in, we're catching up with Associate Professor Mafua Ailurutai Malakai Kolomatangi. I do want to ask Malakai, earlier this year, you probably would have seen, Samoa held their general election, which really ended up in like months dealing with sort of a constitutional crisis. Is there, though, then potential for Tonga's elections to go through a similar thing?
That's an interesting question because Samoa has been held up to be the model of democracy and stability, and for other Pacific Islands to follow it, and with good reason. For the case of Tonga, there isn't that issue because it's not, as I said, the government is not formed by formalized parties as they are as it is in Samoa, and the head of state in Tonga is the king, is the monarch, and he has very, very specific rights and freedoms guaranteed by the constitution, and he cannot do anything outside of the constitution. Well, anyone can probably do that, but it's not the history of Tonga as the political development has seen that the monarch plays that role quite narrowly and quite specifically. So it'd be difficult for Tonga to go through that. And there are also safeguards in the Tongan constitution and in the political system itself that would make it difficult. This idea about, because part of the reason and far be it for me to comment on Samoan politics, but you have this. There's a very clear demarcation of and separation of powers in Tonga, and we have a Privy Council which Samoa doesn't have, which still has a great deal of power. And the judiciary in Tonga has always largely been quite independent in the sense that we have never had a Tongan Chief Justice, for example, which is the case in Tonga. In Samoa. So there are some differences I think that would make it. And of course, Tonga is quite smaller than Samoa in terms of the electorate. And also, there isn't a great deal of power that's held at the local levels, say in the villages, as the Matai system allows in Samoa. So there are differences that would make it difficult for Tonga to end up in an impasse as we saw in Samoa.
there any then with that current political issues for Tonga that we should be aware of?
Yeah, I think, I think there are perennial issues or what I would call foundational issues, to do with democracy, because Tonga's already gone through a process of democratization. And those are issues, I think those are larger issues that people have to worry about in terms of the progress towards democracy. Then, of course, you have the sort of, I would say, day-to-day issues such as drugs and, the criminal problems and, and youth issues and so on. So those are quite, they're social issues, but they're also issues that are, I would call daily sort of, issues that confront the government. So you have those kinds of issues, whether it's the short-term day-to-day issues or the longer-term issues such as, how do you develop the constitution more? How do you get people to understand democracy and so on and so forth? So those are the sort of issues vying for people's attention, during this election.
Really appreciating this, Talanoa Malakai. I do, as we wrap up though, the diaspora here, of course, with our Tongans abroad, what then would be like your key message to us here in Aotearoa and around the world in regards to the elections that are coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I think, this has been a long-standing issue. And there has been a desire by the diaspora to be able to vote for example, in the Tonga elections. You can vote, but you have to be in Tonga. You have to be resident for, I think, for 3 months or more to be able to vote. So what people have talked about is to allow the diaspora to vote from where they are. There are problems with that, logistical problems and so on. I would say that I think people here overseas want to still play a role in influencing politics in Tonga. For one thing, the foreign transfers and remittances in Tonga pay for around half of the government expenditure. So, I would say that gives us, in a monetary term or economic term, a right to say and to be, try to influence things in Tonga. So, I think we just need to support what it is. It's going to Tonga, go ahead in Tonga, and and we keep that in mind and play our bit.
And just finally, also, I do want to just capture your thoughts, though. Just an encouragement, I suppose, for our people here in Tonga and even those back, because of the fact that we now have one COVID case. Is there sort of an encouragement just to keep our community safe?
Yeah, look, I think it's the same message that the government has given, and we really need to keep to the rules, and we need not break the law, and we need to do this for our families and for ourselves, and I know that the vaccination rates for our Pacific community here is going up for some parts, but we just need to keep on doing it because otherwise, we'll be here until the new year in lockdown. So, for yourself and for your families and communities, I would encourage people to keep be vigilant and encourage others to have safe habits and safe behaviors. We see the problem that's currently in Tonga. And we don't want another case or cases to arrive or to arise in Tonga.
Look, Malakai, we just want to thank you for your time. Malo Apito, for joining us this morning. Really super informative and just appreciate your time.
Malo Apito.
No worries. That was Associate